So I gave most of my CDs to my oldest daughter, who's a music freak. And I don't have a CD player at the moment, so I can kind of start over. The leftover tapes and CDs went back here. They will have their glory day in the sun again someday. Didn't keep too many. Just a few bands, artists. Hard to find stuff. Miami Bass Wars. That means this case is getting better. At the top it's all single authors. We got Fitzgerald, Camus, Dillard. Then the currently reading shelf. Down at the bottom, a few authors: McCarthy, Cather, O'Brien, Abbey, Jack Handy. Now we've got this new nonfiction shelf of single authors. There might end up being another one of these. Maybe replacing the currently reading. I don't know. Maybe not. But anyway, now I have 3 nonfiction writers here of different sorts. And today let's look at Montaigne. Michel de Montaigne, father of the essay. Montaigne's been on my radar for half my life. I was aware of him. I first got a book of his in the late 90s. There's a nice little paperback from the nonfiction section. So for those of you that don't know, an essay means an attempt in French. In his essays, Michel de Montaigne, 1533 to 92, penned a portrait of himself in a frame of timelessness. Following an entirely new, non-chronological method of autobiography, he set out to test his responses to situations and to ascertain the permanence of his impressions and opinions. Against a brilliant range of subjects from cannibals to physiognomy, the man displayed is objectively detached, tireless in his search for truth, and at all times restrained. His essential modesty is revealed nowhere more clearly than in his famous medal with its inscription, Qu'est-ce que j'ai? What does that mean? Who are you? Something. Montaigne. Montaigne. I bet his name shares a linguistic root with mountains, right? Gives an added meaning to my essayistic book that I've been working on for 15 years. Shadows of Clouds on the Mountains. He really is someone that all essayists should know about and think about. I find it so interesting that he took the essay from these things called commonplace books. I called them something wrong in a previous video. Commonplace books. His reverie in turn gave Montaigne another mad idea, the thought of writing. He called this a reverie too, but it was one that held out the promise of a solution. Finding his mind so filled with chimeras and fantastic monsters one after another without order or purpose, he decided to write them down. Not directly to overcome them, but to inspect their strangeness at his leisure. So he picked up his pen. The first of his essays was born. This is How to Live, or A Life of Montaigne, a book I really enjoyed. Squirrel, don't obsess over the closet. So at first, let's see. These were his modest beginnings, so he just wrote down stuff he liked to stop. At first, this mainly meant following his personal enthusiasms, especially stories from his reading, tales from Ovid, histories from Caesar and Tacitus, biographical snippets from Plutarch, and advice on how to live from Seneca and Socrates. Then he wrote down stories he heard from friends, incidents from the day-to-day life of the estate, cases that had lodged in his mind from his years in law and politics, and oddities he had seen on his so far limited travels. These were his modest beginnings. Later, his material grew until it included almost every nuance of emotion or thought he had ever experienced, not least his strange journey in and out of unconsciousness. It's important if you're working on a giant masterwork that's supposed to express your whole self. Make sure you include almost every nuance of emotion or of emotion or thought you've ever experienced. Not least his strange journey in and out of unconsciousness. Hey, I have a chapter on hypnagogic and hypnopompic states. The idea of publication may have crossed his mind early on. Leave the closet alone. Binding tragedy. The idea of publication may have crossed his mind early on, though he claimed otherwise, saying he wrote only for family and friends. Perhaps he even began with the intention of composing a commonplace book, a collection of thematically arranged quotations and stories of a kind popular among gentlemen of the day. I'm fascinated by this idea. In his classes, Montaigne picked up rhetorical skills and critical habits of thought which he would use all his life. It was probably also here that he first encountered the idea of using commonplace books, notebooks in which to write down snippets one encountered in one's reading, setting them in creative juxtaposition. In later years as a teenager, Montaigne studied more interesting subjects. But yeah, these commonplace books, even in its first edition, Montaigne's essays were unique. It slotted neatly into the established marketing genres of classical miscellanies and commonplace books. It had that perfect commercial combination, startling originality and easy classification. I just find it so interesting that now the essay is kind of fragmenting again and becoming this modular thing, not unlike a collection of quotes in a commonplace book. Maybe the essay is caught in an eternal cycle of integrity and deconstruction, wholeness and fragmentation. Like our thoughts. It's a bilingual edition. This must have his original works in it too, maybe on one side. Yeah, one of those books. For bilingual readers, people who just don't trust the translation. Guess it's cool to have. Here's his famous longest work, which I read once while I was writing Some Thoughts on Boston, which I thought would be my longest essay. So I thought this would be a good thematic thing to know and think about. But then that didn't even turn out to be close to my longest work. What's this one even about? The Apology is a witty defense of a long-forgotten treatise on natural theology and a masterpiece of counter-Reformation and Renaissance argument. And in it, Montaigne is ironical and so fair to opposing views that it became a favorite with deists and freethinkers also. Another nice addition. This looks really similar to that one. Same painting. They must do battle. Chunky necklaces are so 1500s core. Oh my god. Harvard Classics. Once at the antique case. Now living with the Montaigne books. Ugh, the binding on some of these is so bad. Education of children. I never knew father, how crooked and deformed soever his son were, that would either altogether cast him off or not acknowledge him for his own. And yet, unless he be merely besotted or blinded in his affection, it may not be said, but he plainly perceiveth his defects and hath a feeling of his imperfections. But so it is, he is his own, so it is in myself. I see better than any man else. What I have set down is naught but the fond imaginations of him who in his youth hath tasted nothing but the paring, seen but the superficies of true learning, whereof he hath retained but a general and shapeless form, a smack of everything in general, but nothing to the purpose in particular, after the French manner. Oh, guilty. Of course, to the Lady Diana of Foix, Countess of Gerson. Well, this one's pretty cool. This might have been the first one to come into my collection, and it was because of Dali, not Montaigne. Essays with illustrations by Dali. What? Hey, it's striking. It's like Stedman-esque. What's up, Squirrel? You like Montaigne, Squirrel? Yikes. I'm sure that's just what Montaigne was thinking when he wrote his essay. These are great. Some of Dali's best stuff, honestly. This is the one I want framed in my house. Very cool. Here's another from a series, Britannica, great book. Montaigne. Oh, I get it. The book has 26 and 33 chapters in the 2 volumes, as if preceding them. I feel very connected to these big names and the forms I love. I'm just aware of them, you know. I should have a picture of Montaigne somewhere in my place. In 2022, my daughter disappeared on the East Coast. I had to go out to find her. This is the book I had with me. found her, but then she was in a hospital saying that she was an adult. So I couldn't visit her right away. I was sitting outside the Stamford Hospital where Maxwell Perkins died back in the day. Little did I know. Reading this a lot. Evidence. Yeah, my daughter lied that she was 18 and that her name was Anathema. How to live, don't worry about death. Book needs taped up. But you gotta read things like this when you're talking about figures from the past. You need that additional context. Montaigne once altered his route to Rome because of a warning about armed robberies on the road he had intended to take. Life should be an aim unto itself, a purpose unto itself. It's very Alan Watts. Montaigne, like Larry, could be accused of romanticizing the peoples of the New World. Squirrel, what's up? You need a bath, I think. Your hair just never looks like perfectly clean. The essays were still outlawed in France. It had been 50 years since the ban. 1724. Prismo's here. What's up, kitty? But as far as essays go, he really is the granddaddy of us all. I mean, the essay has changed so much since him. It's grown in experimentation and form. Did he ever get experimental? He was kind of discovering the form, which was an experiment in itself. But I'm going to do a big Montaigne kick one of these days. Hi, kitty. Psst. There's probably not even that much to read by him, honestly. It's like 2 collections of essays, an apology for Raymond Sabond, other miscellanies. There'd be a lot of repetition if you read all these books here. But repetition is where you learn. Look at mother and daughter just hanging out there, being cute. This is very appropriate. Montaigne loved his cats, and he was in a tower with them. He had sayings written on his rafters. I like that idea. Maybe I should do something like that in a similar font. There's calling me. I think that's it for this video then. All right. Take care, everybody.